Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everybody. We are so glad you are here with us today.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We've got a really great discussion lined up for you.
We really do. So if you were with us for the last deep dive, you know we started unpacking the belt of truth.
Right, from chapter 4 of Dev Raghu's book, Armed with Grace.
Exactly. And we talked a lot about the foundation of that Roman armor, right? The theology behind it. But our mission today, the whole reason we're doing this specific deep dive, is to move away from the abstract theology and get right down into the messy, beautiful reality of your daily life.
Because that's where the actual battle is fought.
Yes, down in the trenches. Because the big argument here is that the belt of truth isn't just about, having correct doctrine or winning a theological debate.
No, not at all.
It actually requires radical emotional honesty, like deeply vulnerable, honest living.
Which, let's be honest, runs completely counter to human nature.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, when you examine the landscape of spiritual warfare, the enemy's primary weapon is almost never brute force. It's deception.
Right.
And deception has a preferred habitat. It absolutely requires secrecy and silence and shame to survive. So the profound premise we're looking at today is that your freedom doesn't begin when you finally reach some, elevated level of spiritual perfection.
Which we all think it does, right? Like, once I fix this, then I'll be free.
Exactly. But no, freedom begins the exact moment you just stop hiding.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the danger of wearing masks, the exhaustion of hiding, is something I think literally every single person listening has experienced.
Oh, undoubtedly.
We walk into our workplaces, our friend groups, and especially our churches, and we just project this image of absolute strength.
Right. The perfect Sunday smile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have the right answers, we smile at the right times, but internally the foundation is completely cracking.
It's exhausting.
It is. Imagine for a moment spending thousands of dollars on a state-of-the-art security system for your house. You install the motion sensors, the reinforced windows, you get those heavy-duty deadbolts.
The whole setup.
Right. You've got high-definition cameras pointing in every conceivable direction, and the perimeter looks entirely secure. But every single night, you just leave the back door wide open.
Just wide open.
Wide open. And not because you forgot, but simply because the lock on that door is broken and you are just too embarrassed to call a locksmith.
Oh, wow.
You're too ashamed to admit that your seemingly perfect house has a flaw, so you would rather risk a devastating break-in than admit to anyone that you need help fixing a door.
I mean, it sounds absolutely absurd when we frame it physically like that.
Right. You'd think someone was crazy.
Because why would anyone compromise their actual safety and invite ruin just to save face?
But that broken lock is exactly what we're looking at today. In our sources for this deep dive, we are looking at why we leave the back doors of our lives wide open to deception.
And to understand why we do this, we really have to look at the intersection of our neurochemistry and the broader biblical picture.
Which is fascinating.
It really is. If you look all the way back to the Garden of Eden, Genesis 3, you see the literal origin point of this exact behavior.
The first mass.
Exactly. The enemy didn't invade the garden with a sprawling army or siege weapons. He showed up with a simple, highly calculated question designed to plant doubt. He just asks, did God really say?
So the entry point wasn't an attack, it was an interrogation of reality.
Yes, an interrogation of reality that immediately bred shame. And what was the immediate result of that deception taking root? Adam and Eve sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves, and they literally hid among the trees.
They hid, wow.
Because shame triggers the brain's threat response. When we feel shame, our nervous system actually perceives a threat to our literal survival.
It feels like we're going to die if people find out.
Right. Which leads to this overwhelming urge to withdraw and conceal. And deception requires that darkness to take root.
So the hiding is what gives the deception its power.
Precisely. When you isolate yourself, the lies you believe about yourself, that you aren't enough, that your struggles disqualify you, that if people really knew the real you, they would reject you. Those lies just echo in an empty chamber.
Because there's no counter-narrative. There's no one there to say, hey, that's not true.
Exactly. They grow louder and stronger because isolation removes the voices of truth that could challenge them.
Yeah.
The isolation itself becomes the amplifier for the deception.
That dynamic of the echo chamber is actually a perfect bridge to one of the specific case studies presented in the source text.
Oh, Eric's story.
Yeah, the story about Eric. So Eric had been a believer for a long time. He was married, he served in his church, just by all accounts a really solid guy.
A pillar of the community type.
Right. But for 15 years, he carried this secret, agonizing struggle with pornography, and he was absolutely drowning in shame.
15 years is a long time to carry that.
A massive weight. And he had tried everything, every internet filter, every accountability app, every white knuckle strategy you can think of to just stop doing it, but nothing held.
And that cycle is incredibly common, and it's just devastating. It is the classic cycle of trying to manage a behavior while completely ignoring the root cause.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure.
Because a lot of people would look at Eric's situation and say, well, look, that is just a willpower issue. He just needs to try harder or put the family computer in the living room.
Right, just buckle down.
Yeah. So why does the source text argue that willpower is totally the wrong tool for this job?
Well, primarily because willpower is finite, and it only addresses the symptom. The text makes this a brilliant point that Eric's core problem wasn't the lack of discipline. It was a deeply ingrained identity lie.
An identity lie.
Yeah. Over 15 years of secrecy, he had allowed a specific lie to take root in the dark. The enemy was whispering, "This is who you are. You will never be free. This addiction defines your fundamental nature."
So the behavior is just downstream of the belief?
Always. Repeated lies, if left unchallenged in the dark, actually rewire your neural pathways. They shape your identity and dictate your emotional baseline.
That is terrifying.
It is. And the reality is, you absolutely cannot willpower your way out of a false identity. If you fundamentally believe you are a captive, your brain and your spirit will align to live like a captive.
No matter how many filters you install.
Right. No matter how many external behavioral rules you put in place to try and mimic freedom, the foundation is rotten.
That completely changes the entire battlefield. I mean, if the lock on the back door is an identity lie, how do you dismantle an identity?
You have to replace it.
Because Eric did eventually find breakthrough, right? But it wasn't by doubling down on his internet filters. He shifted his entire approach. He stopped trying to modify his behavior in secret and started attacking the false identity directly.
And that's where things start to change.
Yeah. He began replacing that specific echoing lie with specific truths from Scripture. Truths about being a new creation, about the old self being gone.
John 8:32 says, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." He had to actually know it. Possess it. He moved from defensive behavior management to offensive identity transformation.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting though, because I want to push back on how he actually did this.
Okay, let's hear it.
The methodology is fascinating, but it might raise some eyebrows for some people. Eric didn't just passively read these verses in his head.
No, he didn't.
He wrote them out on index cards and he read them aloud every single morning. He made these intense vocal identity declarations. And I have to be honest, writing affirmations on a card and repeating them to the mirror every morning.
It sounds a bit like New Age manifesting.
It sounds exactly like New Age manifesting. So what makes this any different from someone just trying to manifest a positive reality?
That is such a crucial distinction to make, and I'm glad you brought it up. It might look similar externally, but the mechanics and the source of power are fundamentally opposed.
Okay, how so?
Well, manifesting is rooted in the belief that you are the source of truth, that by focusing your own mental energy, you can generate or create a new reality out of thin air. You are essentially trying to bend the universe to your will.
Right, you're the center of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But declaration, in the biblical sense we were talking about here, is the exact opposite. It is an act of surrender to an already existing objective reality.
Oh, that's good.
You are not creating truth. You are aligning your mind, your neurochemistry, and your spirit with the truth that God has already spoken. God is the source of the truth. You are simply stepping into it.
So you're not manifesting the belt of truth, you're just buckling it on.
That's a perfect way to put it. And there's the profound physiological mechanic at play here too.
With speaking it out loud.
Yeah. When Eric spoke those truths aloud, he was engaging totally different parts of his brain. Speech requires motor function, auditory processing, and cognitive synthesis.
It's a whole body experience.
It really is. By speaking the truth out loud, he was actively interrupting the ingrained neural pathways of shame and addiction. He was bringing the truth from an abstract intellectual concept down into his daily possession.
Because you cannot counter a lie with a truth you do not personally possess.
You can't draw a sword you haven't picked up.
Boom. Exactly. Every time you declare what is objectively true, you are anchoring your nervous system and your spirit to reality.
Which is defined by God, not by the shifting shadows of the enemy's whispers.
Okay, let's bring this into the friction of everyday life for the listener, because all this sounds really empowering in theory.
Sure.
But if honesty brings freedom, if stepping out of the dark and possessing the truth is the ultimate key to breaking these chains, why are we still so terrified of it?
Because exposure feels like a threat. We are absolutely terrified of the social and relational consequences if people were to see the unedited version of who we are.
I think about the dynamic of modern church culture a lot in this context.
It's a huge factor.
You look around and you see leaders who are absolutely petrified to admit any kind of weakness or doubt or moral failing because their entire platform and livelihood depend on projecting strength.
Yep, the pedestal is very high.
And very narrow. You see marriages that look flawless on social media, but behind closed doors, they are drowning. Men and women carry these massive silent burdens of shame, insecurity, fear, and deep resentment entirely alone.
It's tragic.
It is. We have built a culture that often prizes the pristine appearance of victory over the messy, bleeding reality of the battlefield.
And that polished, pristine culture is actually a highly efficient breeding ground for spiritual bondage.
Oh, wow. Say more about that.
Well, this is where the wisdom of the source text becomes radically countercultural. It points straight to James 5:1c, which says, "Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed."
Notice the distinction there.
What stands out to you?
It doesn't say confess to God for forgiveness.
No, it doesn't, because forgiveness is secured vertically through Christ.
Yeah.
But healing, the actual tangible restoration of your soul, has a horizontal dimension.
It happens in community.
It has to happen in community. 1 John 1 echoes this by emphasizing the vital importance of walking in the light.
Right. If we walk in the light as he is in the light.
We have fellowship with one another. Exactly. When you harbor unconfessed struggles, pain, or sin, you are leaving that back door open. You are giving the enemy legal, undisputed ground to operate in your life.
But wait, let's talk about the reality of confessing to each other.
It's scary.
It is terrifying. In modern culture, whether in a church small group, a workplace, or even just a friend circle, that sounds incredibly dangerous. If I tell a group about a deep, shameful struggle, there is a very real chance it becomes gossip by Tuesday.
That is a very valid hesitation. People absolutely get burned doing this.
Yeah. The word confession alone sounds like being dragged into a tribunal.
And that's why we have to clearly define what healthy confession actually is, because the text is not advocating for reckless exposure.
Okay, so what is it not?
Confession is not unhealthy public oversharing. It is not grabbing a microphone on a Sunday morning and broadcasting your deepest traumas to 300 acquaintances.
Right. Please don't do that.
Please don't. And it is certainly not a tool to be used by others for condemnation or shame.
So what does it look like practically then?
It is courageous, spiritual honesty with safe, trusted individuals. It is looking at one trusted friend, a vetted pastor or professional counselor, and saying, "This is where I am vulnerable. This is the broken lock on my back door."
The goal isn't public humiliation.
Not at all. The goal is breaking the power of secrecy. The moment another human being knows your struggle and does not reject you, that echo chamber of shame is shattered.
That is so powerful.
Secrecy feeds bondage, but targeted, courageous confession breaks it.
I love that phrase, courageous spiritual honesty. Let's look at another scenario from the text that perfectly illustrates this.
The panic attack story.
Yes, and this one isn't about addiction or moral failure, it's about emotional health. So there's this man who was sitting in a small group, and for 3 years, he had been suffering from debilitating panic attacks. 3 years of hiding it. He was masking this intense anxiety behind humor, behind an incredibly busy schedule, just totally projecting the image of a guy who had it all together.
Which again is an incredibly heavy mask to wear, constantly managing the gap between your internal terror and your external performance.
It's completely exhausting. But one night, the exhaustion finally wins. He takes a breath and he admits it out loud to this group of guys.
He just puts it out there.
Yeah. He confesses that he is terrified, that he's having these panic attacks, and he is struggling just to function. And the reaction he gets is astonishing.
It really is the best case scenario.
He didn't get judged. He didn't get a theological lecture on why he shouldn't be anxious. 4 other men in that exact same circle looked at him and said, "Me too."
Wow.
4 other men were fighting the exact same hidden battle, sitting in the same room, completely convinced they were the only ones.
That is the power of the light. The enemy had successfully isolated 5 different men in the exact same room. But in one moment of vulnerability, that isolation tactic evaporated, and genuine Christian community was formed instantly.
But looking at that story, it raises a really interesting point about how we categorize our struggles.
What do you mean?
Well, if the hiding was the actual problem, the thing giving the enemy a foothold, what was the anxiety? It sounds like you're saying the anxiety itself wasn't a moral failure.
Right.
It's like a check engine light. It's a signal, not a sin.
That is a brilliant synthesis of what's happening there. The physiological experience of anxiety, the racing heart, the panic, is your body's alarm system. It is a signal.
So the danger was ignoring the alarm.
Exactly. The sin, or the spiritual danger, wasn't that his alarm system was going off. It was that he was muffling the alarm and hiding it in the dark, which kept him from the healing community God had provided.
Which means dealing with it requires a multifaceted approach. We can't just pray the alarm away if there's a fire in the engine.
Absolutely. Bringing things into the light often involves seeking professional help right alongside our spiritual weapons.
Which is something a lot of believers struggle to accept.
They do, because we compartmentalize our faith from our emotional health.
Right.
But the text places immense value on Christian counseling, pastoral care, and recovery groups. God gave us a spirit, but he also gave us a brain with complex neurochemistry.
Right. He made the whole system.
He did. So courageous honesty means acknowledging when you need a doctor or a therapist just as much as you need prayer. Seeking therapy, attending a recovery group, confiding in a mentor. These are deeply spiritual acts.
I love that.
They are the practical outworking of buckling on the belt of truth. You are actively refusing to let deception operate in the dark corners of your life.
Framing therapy and counseling as deeply spiritual acts, as the literal buckling on of the belt of truth, is such a liberating perspective.
It really removes the stigma, doesn't it?
It removes the stigma entirely. Because the ultimate takeaway of this deep dive isn't a lecture on moral perfection.
Not at all.
It's not about shaming you into better behavior or condemning you for the areas where you are struggling. Like David says in Psalm 139, "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts." It's an invitation.
It's about waking you up to the reality that you do not have to carry the weight of it alone.
Yes.
The enemy's grip on your life relies almost entirely on your silence. The moment you speak it, the moment you drag that hidden, shameful thing out into the light, it fundamentally loses its power to define you.
And that is the liberating truth at the core of the gospel. We don't have to pretend we have it all together because our standing isn't based on our flawless performance.
It's based on Christ's finished work.
Exactly. When you truly internalize that, the mask becomes completely obsolete. You can admit your brokenness without any fear of losing your standing with God.
And a believer who is no longer afraid of being known is a believer the enemy simply cannot control.
A believer who is no longer afraid of being known. Man, that is a powerful blueprint for emotional health.
It's everything.
So let's synthesize the core strategy here for you listening. What is the fundamental message of this deep dive? It's that the belt of truth goes far beyond intellectual knowledge. It requires living openly, vulnerably, and honestly.
Because truth and honesty bring lasting, tangible freedom, while secrecy only reinforces your own bondage.
You have to ensure that both the front door and the back door of your life are secured by objective truth, not just the parts you want people to see.
Right.
So here's the challenge we want to leave you with today. And we don't say this as a heavy obligation, but as a strategy for your own freedom.
An invitation to freedom.
Yes. Consider bringing just one hidden struggle into the trusted light this week. Just one.
It doesn't have to be everything all at once.
No, it might start with a deeply honest, unedited, frustrated prayer to God, finally admitting something you've been trying to compartmentalize even from Him.
Which he already knows anyway.
Exactly. Or maybe it's sending a text to a vetted, trusted friend, a pastor or a counselor, and just saying, hey, I need to talk. I am not okay in this area.
Take one calculated step out of the echo chamber.
Because the deception in your mind will scream that stepping into the light is going to destroy your life and your reputation.
It will tell you it's the end of the world.
But the psychological and spiritual reality is that the light is the absolute only environment where genuine healing can actually survive.
That's right.
Well, there is so much more to uncover on this journey, and we want to invite you to continue with us as we navigate the rest of the Armed with Grace deep dives.
We're going to keep unpacking these psychological insights, biblical teachings, and practical battle strategies.
Because you need them for the unseen war around you.
We've really just scratched the surface of the arsenal available to us.
We truly have. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Right. What is it?
Think back to that broken lock on the back door of the security system we talked about earlier. If the enemy's absolute greatest weapon against you isn't an army, but rather your own paralyzing fear of being truly known, what kind of unstoppable, breathtaking freedom is waiting for you on the other side of your own honesty?